This is KUGAN CASSIUS Rifle TV in association with... What does it say on that mug?
I want to stress it's not my mug. Too hot to handle. It was in the office group stuff, but I just thought it was funny.
With me, I've got promoter Eddie Hearn. Ed, how are you doing? All right?
Doing all right. Normally you're sitting next to me.
I know, but I like this sort of intense.
Can I say why you said you didn't want to sit next to me? Because it is funny. You said because you can't keep a straight face when I say certain things, so you've got to be behind the camera.
No, sometimes like I said when I'm talking to you and it's over a long time, I can't keep control of my facial expressions. And
a lot of the time, I'll say something on camera, and I'll see you behind the camera going, "Oh," because all you're thinking about is the views. Like, "Oh yes, yes." Such a stir merchant you are.
Just do what we do. Right, quite a lot has happened over the last 2 weeks. Well, a lot has happened and it hasn't, but certain issues need addressing from all parties. So we'll start with you. And obviously I did an interview with Frank Warren last week, Monday I believe, or Tuesday, I can't remember. Frank Warren said in that interview that about the exclusivity agreement that you have with Sky, and he also said that that isn't the case. So I'm sure you've watched the interview or heard what he said in the interview, so I'm asking you to sort of respond to that.
Yeah, there's been a lot of things said over the last couple of weeks. I mean, firstly, you address me like you're more of a policeman than an interviewer. We don't need to address these things, but certainly on the issue of Frank Warren and the Hennessy stuff as well, got to understand the two most important things in our life are our family and the company. And really they're the same kind of thing, because the company is something that my old man's built from nothing. I'm trying to push forward to new levels. My next generation will be doing the same. And it's very close to our heart. It's not like we're employees of an organisation. Do you understand what I'm saying? And it's probably the same kind of thing. So when we get called a liar or anything like that, we have to address these things. It was a bit embarrassing last week addressing these things on Twitter, but when you're looking at them thinking, that's just lies, it's not right. You want to put it right. And this is a good opportunity to do it, because on Twitter, you get 140 characters, or how many you get. So firstly, dealing with the Warren thing, I don't really understand. We have an exclusive, a mutually exclusive deal with Sky Sports in the UK and Ireland. You cannot get on Sky Sports Saturday Night Fight Night or Sky Sports Pay-Per-View without us. It's simple. If anybody wants to, they can try. But on Sky Sports Box Office, on Sky Sports Saturday Night Fight Night, they cannot work with any other promoter. So I don't understand what the big deal is. It was in a press release originally. If you want, you can ask Sky. Do you think I'd sit here and say these things about an organisation, a corporation like that, and lie to you about my relationship with Sky? It's contractual. It's not in good faith. It's contractual. It was the reason we signed a 6-year deal with Sky to be their exclusive boxing promoter, and vice versa. I cannot promote shows on any other channel with any other broadcaster, and nor can they. And that is why we signed a new 6-year deal, which has 5.5 years to run. So I don't know what he's talking about. If he wants to, I'm presuming, and I've heard that he's starting his own pay-per-view channel. So, but it'll have nothing to do with Sky Sports, because contractually they cannot work with any other promoter. So I don't know. I don't know where he's coming from with that. And, you know, talks about sue me if I'm wrong. I don't have to sue you. In boxing, just like in business and in life, it's all about levels. We are on a different level to these people. So they'll try and shoot us down, and I'm guessing they're not happy with our position in boxing. But, you know, I look at the show on Saturday night that they did. They didn't sell 4,000 tickets. This is a double domestic world title fight and a really good card. And you can't sell 4,000 tickets? You're in the wrong game. And for those who search for credibility or answers, the answer is in the facts. The answer is in Companies House. Search online. Look at the two businesses. We don't have to be arguing with these people. We don't want to argue with these people. You know, I hope to make fights with these people. But if you want to approach Sky Sports and try and get a pay-per-view fight, feel free. You'll be told exactly the same thing. We're exclusive to Sky, to Matchroom, and exclusive to Eddie Hearn. So, you know, I'm more than willing for you to go back and ask him the same questions. But as far as I'm concerned, I have a 6-year contract, mutually exclusive, and that's the end of the story.
Frank Warren in that interview said that he has letters from Sky lawyers relating to what we're talking about. So, is there
he can show. He's never shy to show an email. So I'd love to see him, because I talked to Barney Francis about it, and he says ridiculous. So I'd love to see him. But it's straightforward in black and white in our contract with Sky Sports. The exclusivity clause is deep, and it states very clearly nobody can promote a fight in the UK and Ireland on Sky. And now we talk about UK fighters fighting abroad, which we'll get onto the next subject, which is the Hennessy Fury argument, where we were accused of having absolutely no involvement in the deal at all. Do you want me to address that one?
Yeah, so before you do that, I'm just going to read...
This one's a lot easier to address.
Okay. So I'm going to read what Hennessy put out, which I'm assuming is from Mick. It said it was from Mick on the Twitter. So it said from the Hennessy Sports Twitter, out of respect for Sky, we shall keep this short. Each side had to agree its own deal and splits with Sky for the October date, which included your event from Sheffield as part of the undercard. You had no involvement whatsoever with the rescheduled November event in Dusseldorf. You are not Sky, and you are not Sky's agent. You were not party to any of the contract negotiations, calls or correspondence with Sky, and you were not party to our agreement. It is interesting that from your original claim of brokering, arranging our deal with Sky, you have now conceded that you only negotiated your splits, with an exclamation mark. It is embarrassing that you have raised this issue at all.
Okay, well, we're going to have a lot of fun with this statement. So, first of all, we were asked of our involvement with that deal. I think you asked me the first question. I think it was at the Gale Butte press conference. You talked about your involvement with the pay-per-view, and I spelled it out then. The chain of events are very, very simple. So I'll try and keep this as simple for everyone. And if you have anything that you don't understand, because that means a viewer might not understand it, please ask me. Okay, first of all, Bernd Bonte and Mick Hennessy approached Barney Francis about doing Fury and B. Klitschko on Sky Sports pay-per-view. Okay, Barney had a conversation with him, I think he had a meeting with him, called me straight away, kept me in the loop. I'm saying, listen, you've got to do this fight. It's not a case of me saying, you're not allowed. If it works for Sky and it's going to benefit us and the channel, I'm in, 100%. It's a partnership. They approached Barney Francis, they had a chat. Barney Francis went back to them after speaking to me with an offer. This was rejected by Bernd Bonte. There was no further correspondence for about a week and a half. I was on holiday, actually, with my kids and family, and I phoned Barney Francis and asked him if he's heard anything. The answer was no. I said, okay, I'm going to pick it up from here. I called Bernd Bonte and said, you don't want to lose this opportunity to have this fight on Sky. We need to talk. Come back to me within 24 hours. We scheduled a conference call with Shelley Finkel, his lawyer. I looked at the offer that was made from Sky, which obviously I knew, which was K2 split. Nothing to do with Matchroom split. Okay, for now, let's keep this simple. They weren't happy with their split. So we had a conference call with a couple of hours. My missus was going potty at the time. And we got to a point where I worked out the split for them. K2 split. Not Matchrooms, not Sky's. K2 split. I told them what we were taking from the split. I told them what Sky were taking from the split. They came back. They weren't happy initially. We moved a little bit on ours. Sky moved a little bit on ours. And after about 3 or 4 days of negotiations, we agreed the split that K2 would receive. And by that, K2, and by the way, it's not Hennessy, it's K2, the promoters of the show. So K2 and Hennessy, if you like, as a party, don't know their co-promotional agreement on that, would receive from Fury v Klitschko. Okay? We would do an event in Sheffield, we would take our split, and Sky would take their split. I then presented this back to Sky, who were happy because I was keeping them involved in the loop as well. Myself, not via K2. The person negotiating the deal was me. Okay? I went back to Barney Francis. I sent a lovely email out to Bernd Bonte, to Shelley Finkel, to Sky Sports. Great news. We've reached a deal. I will pass it over to you guys to contract. Simple. From there, we arranged the Brook fight. Then, a couple of weeks later, after the press conference, Klitschko pulled out. Okay? So, we were stuffed, really. Were we going to go ahead on with Brook, on its own, on a pay-per-view? So, we decided that we would use our split to run the Brook show on non-pay-per-view. I don't know if you remember this sequence of events. Same split, nothing changed. Bernd Bonte wanted to run the event on November the 28th, was it? The date? Yeah. We didn't really want to do that. And when I say we, our partners, Sky, because we had Joshua planned for December the 12th on pay-per-view. It felt like it was a little bit close, but it was two major events. So at first we said no, and then we decided, and I decided, that if we could keep the deal the same, I could use our split to run our Sheffield show with Eubank and also run the rescheduled Brook show on normal Sky. So when he talks about he wasn't involved in the rescheduled bout, the terms of the deal were exactly the same for the rescheduled bout that I negotiated originally. Nothing changed. All it was a date change. So I don't really understand that bit. To keep it really simple, I negotiated the splits between K2, Matchroom and Sky. Once the fight fell through, those splits never changed. They were exactly the same. There was nothing else to negotiate other than the day. So all these emails flying around last week, you weren't involved. You were only involved in the UK leg. No. I negotiated the split with K2, not Sky, me. I negotiated that split, and then my split of the show with Sky, and K2 were fully aware of my split that I was taking from the show. And when this was all going off last week, I sent Peter Fury probably 7 or 8 emails with all my negotiations with Bernd Bonte, and it's in black and white because I like Peter Fury, and this was getting very petty. And again, this is very petty, but it's important to me because this business means a lot to me. We're not going to have people stand up and calling us liars. And people say, well, why did you get involved in Fury Klitschko? Because we're exclusive to Sky. By the way, if we weren't exclusive, do you think we would have been involved negotiating deals with Bernd Bonte and K2 for a Klitschko Fury pay-per-view? Of course not. But we're exclusive. We've worked hard to get that exclusivity, and we'll reap the benefits of it.
Apart from the negotiations regarding the split between the parties, what else did you have involvement in to do with the deal?
There's no, when you're talking about a pay-per-view deal, unless you're talking about the legals of a contract, which will be sent once the heads of terms are agreed, which is effectively the split when you're talking about a pay-per-view. We know the date, we know the venue, we know the start time. We need to know the split, the deal, the chunk of the deal. And once that's agreed, you proceed to contract. So what was offered to Bernd Bonte initially, he rejected. I then picked it up, and over the course of probably a week to 10 days, negotiated the split with Bernd and myself and Sky. Sky being kept in the background while I picked this up. And it worked very, very well. It was very beneficial. And that's how it played out. I don't know why they feel I wasn't involved. I don't really care. But that's the chain of events. So in terms of were we involved, well, we negotiated the split with K2 and Sky. K2 split, Sky split, and our split. So if we weren't involved, it's very strange if you think that, you know, that the bulk of the deal, well, virtually all of the deal, was secured by myself.
What's the difference between your exclusive rights to a show that is here, involving a UK fighter, even if it's not your own, to a pay-per-view fight that is abroad, as it was in Germany? What's the difference?
Any event involving a UK fighter. So, for instance, people say to me, "Oh, well, I suppose you negotiated the Mayweather-Pacquiao deal as well." No, didn't have anything to do with it. Spoke to Top Rank a couple of times, but nothing. Barney and Adam flew out to LA. They did the deal. It was wonderful for the channel. Nothing to do with me. I follow contracts. So, you know, and it's not a case of restricting. I'm not looking. I could have turned around and said, "Sky, you're not accepting Fury Klitschko," right? And we could have had a huge. That doesn't appeal to me. It's about the channel winning and Matchroom winning. It's not, you know, how do I put people out of business? And people say that I was obstructive to getting a fight on the channel. Absolute rubbish. I was just looking for a way that could benefit Matchroom.
But when you say UK fighter, do you mean a UK fighter that's Matchroom, or does that any UK fighter?
So, you know, Fury, same thing. You know, whether it's, I don't know, Khan fighting, you know, we'll be involved. But, you know, the UK and Ireland exclusivity, one thing's for sure. And again, if it's a fight of a magnitude of Fury Klitschko, Sky are going to come to us and say, "Look, you've got to be happy. We've got to find a way to work for you, but we'd like to do it." And I know that. I'm not stupid. But you cannot get on pay-per-view without us. And that is our major hand. So anyone, all these UK fighters, and of course, you know, talk about UK fighters fighting abroad, that's quite rare. You know, main marquee UK fighters are going to be looking to fight in the UK. And it's impossible. And that's our big hand with these fights. Every fighter wants to become a pay-per-view fighter. And I know that fans might not like to hear that, but that's the truth. And I believe every fighter in the UK would like to be a Sky Sports fighter. That's what I believe. Because everybody wants the carrot of becoming a pay-per-view fighter on Sky Sports box office.
If a promoter, forget about pay-per-view for a minute, if a promoter wants to, obviously, we've seen George Groves and the Sowlands when they did the show at Wembley Arena against Rabras. Does that have to be a co-promotion with you, or that can't happen?
We have total say. Total say. They cannot promote a show in the UK without us. Impossible. That was a good example where Sky Sports, I know, especially coming off the Wembley fight, wanted George Groves. We worked a deal with Calla that was very beneficial to us. Sky Sports got the return of George Groves, rated really, really well. We got 3 or 4 fighters on the bill. I'm not a bitter old promoter that likes to close the door on people and just be selfish, stubborn and obnoxious. If it works for Sky and it works for our business and it works for our fighters, I'm all for it. It doesn't matter whether it's Sowland, it doesn't matter if it's Cyclone Promotions, it doesn't matter if it's PBC. I welcome them all in. And that applies to Frank Warren. That applies to Mick Hennessy. That applies to any promoter out there. If I find a product that benefits my broadcaster and a model that benefits our business and our fighters, I'm all for it.
Because, you know, when you read stuff on social media and that, obviously it's suggested that you're saying that what you're saying, but then if Sky wanted to, for example, if Amir Khan wanted to fight on Sky, or someone else, for example, wanted to fight on Sky, that it's ultimately Sky's call whether it goes on there or not.
It's contractual. It's contractual. It's not possible. You know, if Amir Khan turns around and says, "I want to do a fight in Sheffield Arena," it's impossible without us. And he might not be bothered about that. I'm not sitting here saying, "Ha ha ha." That's contracted. So it's not, you know, and he would go to Sky. We had it the other day with Chris Eubank. After we lost the purse bids, he phoned up Adam Smith and Barney Francis. "I'd like to have a meeting." You can't. Go for Eddie. That's what he was told. and that everybody will be told the same thing. Sky would like them on. There would, don't get me wrong. Barney might come to me and say, "I've had an approach from Amir. What do you think?" And I'll say, "Well, I'll pick it up now, Barney. Go on, see what you can do. Go out, maybe see what the financials are, maybe get some kids on the undercard. Great to have Amir on Sky."
So, if it's a fight, we'll take Mayweather Pacquiao as an example. 2 fighters, not UK-based fights, not in the UK. You said that had nothing to do with you. So, is that the only instance where they could effectively, Sky would have no involvement with yourself or Matchroom, and they could put that on regardless of what you thought or wanted?
Yeah, but it's not that kind of relationship. I was in the loop the whole time. We looked at the undercard. Obviously, we had the Groves Jack thing that was interesting. I was talking to Sowland about the rights for. They had the rights and they didn't have the rights. But I can't stop, for something that's not contractual, i.e. a US fighter fighting a US stroke Filipino fighter in America, right? Contractually, I didn't have a leg to stand on. If I did, of course, I would have gone into Sky and say, "What's my cut?" But I didn't. And I'm not going to stop them getting the biggest fight in world boxing history when contractually I don't have a leg to stand on.
But that's what you're saying anyway, isn't it? You're saying that your deal applies to UK-based fighters and fights in the UK. And that is a one-off instance, you can call, because there's not been many. Has there been another pay-per-view fight that's been involved, like Mayweather Pacquiao in that instance?
Not involving Brits, no. And
not involving Brits.
I don't think there will be. But listen, I'm sure everybody looks at the pay-per-view model and is dying to be involved with that model. And there will become more pay-per-view platforms. I think BoxNation will launch a pay-per-view platform in the new year. It wouldn't surprise me if, in time, BT launched a pay-per-view platform, because they must look at the product and think it's a fantastic product, and it allows these major fights to be made. And there isn't the rights fees to pay for these major fights. So, but in terms of Sky Sports box office, you want to do a show over here in the UK, not happening, mate. It's not happening. It's contractual. It's a mutual exclusivity. And on Saturday night fight nights or on Sky box office for the next 5.5 years, it comes through us.
Let me just give you one more example. If you were in a situation where there was a fight that you particularly didn't want on pay-per-view that involved someone else, and Sky come to you, who has the ultimate say whether that is shown, whether it's on regular Sky or on...
It's not... they can't work with another promoter here. So it's not even a case of, look, with this, we really like you, but we're going to do this anyway. That's like me going to ITV and saying, Sky, I really like you, but I'm going to be putting Joshua on Saturday night on ITV. It's a breach. It's not a couple of pals. It's contracted. If I breach that contract, I'm done. If they breach their contract, we've got a big problem. Neither is going to, because our relationship with Matchroom and Sky is rock solid. So there is no way around it. And it's not... They might come to me and say, like when Groves fought Rabras, for example, Barney said, look, George Groves has been on. What do you think? Be good to get him on. Going to do good numbers for us. Off the back of Wembley, I'll leave it to you. If I would have gone back and said, Barney, I couldn't work out a deal, and I don't want to work with George Groves, so he's not on. He would have gone, okay. I'm sure he would have liked him on, but okay. So he's put the responsibility in me for 6 years to deliver in boxing, and not trying to sound like an arrogant prick, excuse my French, but we're delivering big time. Do you know how happy Sky are with our boxing? I mean, the digital, the .com, the box office, the Saturday night fight nights, they are over the moon. So we're solid across so many different sports with Sky, and we're very happy where we are. That's why we committed ourselves to Sky for 6 years. And that's why they committed themselves to Matchroom for 6 years. It's unheard of in boxing terms. And we're very proud to have it. In comparison, what was your involvement in Hey Fury
which obviously never happened. But prior to that, what was your involvement with that?
Well, firstly, the contract that we negotiated was actually announced after Hey Fury, because it was announced, when was it, September or something like that. That's a new 6-year contract. And the exclusivity was slightly different on the pay-per-view. But in answer to your question, on Hey Fury, we had the undercard. We had Scott Quigg against Salinas. We had other fights on there as well. So that was our involvement.
Okay, but you're saying since then the new contract has changed?
A new 6-year contract. One thing we said to Sky is we don't want anyone on Sky apart from us. This is how we develop a stable that is untouchable. And that is what we've got. You know, and there's going to be other broadcasters come out, but you cannot get on Sky Sports without us. So we wanted to develop in the UK an untouchable business and an exclusive relationship where if you wanted to be on Sky, you had to come through us. And that is the case. Saturday night fight nights, pay-per-view, try it. Go and try it. And I guarantee you, you will be told immediately you have to speak to Matchroom.
Going back to last week, first of all, I think I saw it on the Boxing News Twitter that Eubank had parted companies with Matchroom. Saw the tweet from Eubank Senior saying that the deal would you'd been released from the contracts, rather they'd been released from the contract. So can you clarify, because it's not really concrete or black and white, what the situation is?
Yeah, I read a few reports. Eubank's terminated his contract. Very simple. We signed a 3-fight deal with Chris Eubank around September last year. First one was Tony Jetta. Second one was Spike O'Sullivan. Third one was, in my head, probably going to be April 9th on the Joshua card again at the O2. Depending on the WBA situation with Jacobs. He defended his interim world title. I got him a final eliminator against Spike O'Sullivan. He'd become the mandatory for Daniel Jacobs. Chris Eubank, contractually, deal with that point first. If we lost a purse bid during that period, they would be released from the third fight, or whatever fight it was, and also their obligations under the contract.
If they wanted to be.
If they wanted to be, yeah. But I'll come on to that in a minute. So, the day before the purse bid, Chris Eubank Sr. phoned me up. He wanted to fight for the British title. I wasn't as sure in the grand scheme of things whether that was the right move, but particularly in this relationship, I'm certainly governed and driven by the advice and instructions of Chris Eubank Sr. So he talked about the fight. He suggested that Eubank Jr. and Blackwell was pay-per-view, and I needed to make that fight pay-per-view, which I just didn't agree with at all. And we went into the purse bid. Purse bids were open on Wednesday. Frank Warren bid 150,000, maybe a touch more, 157, 158. We bid 205,000, and Hennessy bid 255,000. So to break that down in mathematics terms, with a 60-40 split, we were paying Nick Blackwell £123,000. Okay. Now, in Eubank's contract with us, his purse is much more than that. So we have to pay Eubank his contracted purse anyway. So if we would have won the purse bid, we would have had to pay Chris Eubank Jr.'s contracted purse, forget the purse bid, and Nick Blackwell's £123,000. This fight starts to become very, very expensive. Okay. Now I'm presuming, and I might be wrong, but normally in this situation, Mick Hennessy would go to Nick Blackwell and say, listen, we can win this purse bid on our terms, on our show, but I need to agree a purse with you prior to the purse bid. Let's call it 70 grand. If that's the case, and Eubank was getting 100 from their winning split, 103, then Hennessy's total output is £173,000. Okay? Not saying that's the case, but I'm guessing that it's not uncommon. So,
is that allowed to do?
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah. No, you can agree terms with a fighter. Listen, it's not something that's new. I've done it before, but it's not something that's new. So we lost the purse bid. We were going to pay Nick Blackwell £123,000, huge money, to defend a British title. And effectively, because we lost the purse bid, Chris Eubank Senior was released from his... Chris Eubank Jr. was released from his contract. Then I got a phone call from the lawyer to say, oh, this is disappointing. I said, yeah, very disappointing. I said, we're on a great progression. I said, December 12th was a huge night for Junior, and we got great momentum. So if you want to take the British title fight, you're going to get significantly less than your contracted number with us. And I think we're on a great thing with Sky, to be honest with you. I think you're building really well. You're a great fighter. You've got a great package. You're very entertaining. And I will turn you into, providing you keep winning, a pay-per-view fighter. And then didn't hear anything else. I think actually Chris Eubank Senior put a call into Sky, asked for a meeting. He was told, and I saw the reply. You have to speak to Eddie, as we're exclusive. And then that tweet went out, which was very disappointing. And I feel like people talk about loyalty in boxing. This is a new relationship, and I think it's important to be loyal in not just in boxing but in life. But sometimes, if you're not being treated well, or in this short career you're not quite getting what you should be getting or you deserve, sometimes you have to look elsewhere. In this situation, I feel like over the space of 3 months, I've taken Chris Eubank Jr. to being booed in front of formerly a couple of hundred people in shopping centres to being cheered by 17,000 people at the O2. And a platform in Sky Sports that believe in him, can take him forward, and can ultimately pay him money that he cannot achieve anywhere else in world boxing. So I was very disappointed by the tweet that Senior put out. And worse than that, Sky weren't very pleased, because they felt like it was a bit of an insult as well, because we are as one. My old man was fuming. And I think you see with all these old characters in boxing, my old man, Hennessy to a certain extent, but Warren especially, they've got really short fuses. Do you know what I mean? They've been screwed over hundreds of times. And I'm probably a little bit more forgiving, because I just want to do good business and make great fights. But they're bigger on, perhaps the ethics. And my old man was fuming about the way Eubank conducted himself. So now we're in a position where we had one fight left with Chris Eubank Jr. I'm not interested in one fight with Chris Eubank Jr. I had an opportunity to show him over 3 fights how I would change the direction of his career and raise his profile to another level and ultimately turn him into a pay-per-view fighter. And I will do that if I'm given the opportunity to. He is smart enough, Junior, to know what has happened to him in the last 3 or 4 months. But they've showed their hand. And if they think I'm going to give them one fight and a big payday for them to do this again and walk away, it's not happening. So we've spoken to their lawyers since the tweet. They want to talk, but we've got a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of making up to do. Not necessarily from Junior's side, but I always said to you, you asked me questions in the past about, do you think you'll work with Eubank Junior? Do you remember when we used to ask that question? And I used to say the same thing. I don't know. I don't know if I could put up with it, and deal with it. And to be honest with you, the first 2 fights have been quite smooth. And last fight was so big for Chris Eubank Jr.'s career. And there's so much more I can do for that young man. I can make him millions. But and again, not meaning to sound like, I'm brimming with arrogance. The money, everybody likes to make a few quid. I want to work with people who make me feel proud, who I can watch in the ring, literally begging in my head that these people come through and win. And if I'm in a relationship where I don't like someone, you're not going to get the best out of Eddie Hearn. And it's no good for anyone. Give me Anthony Crolla winning that world title, right? I couldn't have been prouder. But put me in an environment where I'm looking you in the eye and I really don't trust you or like you. We might as well finish now. So we'll talk. Listen, they might just decide, sorry, Eddie, bye. We're going to go and fight for the British title. Contractually well within their rights. Over the next 6 years, they will not appear fighting on Box Office or on Sky Sports Saturday night without me. That's what they're turning their back on. But if they want to do that, I'm sure they'll find another broadcaster. But I can deliver them things beyond their wildest dreams. But it has to be right. And we all have to sit in a room and say, you can't, you've almost broken a trust. They would have been better off coming out and saying, if they're not going to take the Blackwell fight, and they might not, in my opinion, you got to come out and you got to say, we have a long-term plan with Sky Sports and Matchroom, and we believe in them. We believe in them as a broadcaster, and instead you issue a silly tweet, who I then speak to Sky, who turn around and say, oh, okay, where's the next one? This is, you got, at the moment, in the pay-per-view world, the best way to describe it is, you've got all these jumbo jets waiting to land on pay-per-view, and everybody's circling, right? Joshua, Kell Brook, Eubank, De Gale, Quigg, Crolla, Callum Smith, all the other ones looking to join, and when it's your time to land, you're going to be very, very rich. But you've got to be circling. And Eubank was circling. But now he's just been told that he has to go and, find some other airspace. We've got to get him back in that mix. And this is right up there with a used car salesman. But this is what, my old man always says, it's like, just keep circling, we'll land you. And when we land you, mate, you are going to love it. And it's possible for everybody. Joshua, who's just landed and, and then, Kell Brook, you're going to land in the summer. And a massive stadium fight. Eubank Jr., you let me do what I say I'm going to do, you will be landing very soon. And because it's not just about taking a fighter on when they're ready for that level. They have to be built into a pay-per-view fighter. And it was the same for Carl Froch. He wasn't... When we signed Carl Froch, his profile was shocking. He was nowhere near a pay-per-view fighter. In fact, before we signed him, he couldn't even get on Sky Sports, regular Sky Sports. We signed him, got him on regular, built him into a pay-per-view fighter. The money he was earning in the Super 6 was embarrassing. Look at the money he made for Kessler, for Groves 1, Groves 2. I mean, it's, and I could have turned him into a pay-per-view fighter years ago before that. The way he fights and the people he fights. And all these people who are becoming world champions, great. But how much are you going to get paid now? What's your pay-per-view potential? You've got to be built along the way. And Chris Eubank Jr. is sitting there. If I build him right on Sky, he is going to be a big, dirty jumbo jet waiting to land and have it all. But now we have a big problem. And I don't know if it can be solved. And I've talked for about 8 minutes on this subject. So,
okay. So, in an ideal world for you, when you lost the purse bid, and you're in a situation where Chris, say the Eubanks, want to fight for the British title, you've lost the purse bid. So in an ideal situation, how would you have resolved that? So to keep them happy, for them to fight for the British title, but also keep your relationship with the Eubanks and Sky, or is that not possible?
No, two things really. My advice would have been, if you believe in us and believe in the platform, to swerve the British title. I don't, he's mandatory for the world title. I wasn't mad. And Blackwell's, listen, a really underrated fighter, really nice kid as well, and Gary Lockett's done a brilliant job. But I felt like I wanted a big world name and to keep the profile growing on Sky Sports. That's what my advice would have been. So I would have turned around and gone, I'm gutted, but I believe in Sky. I believe in Matchroom. Watch me in a huge fight in March or April. Okay? Now, if they turn around to me, if he would have phoned me up and said, I'm really disappointed, but I really want to fight for this British title, so I'm going to take the fight, it's fine. And then we can look at a deal after. But it's just a process that's gone through, you know? It's like, and it's about, and not making this about me, it's about motivating people. You have to make me want to get out of bed in the morning and knock my cods out for you 24 hours a day. And I've got that with so many fighters. You know, I will sit up all night waiting for calls. I will pest the life out of people trying to make fights. I will go out all over the country giving press conferences for you, selling my soul to KUGAN CASSIUS for you. But if you don't want to be with me and you don't believe in me, you're not getting the same service. Simple as that. And when you sell something, if you don't believe in that product, you are nowhere near the salesman that you could be if I believed in you. It's the same thing. If you're interviewing someone you don't like, right, as opposed to you're interviewing someone that you do like, knows that you know they want to be there, they want to be talking to you, they're excited to be doing an interview, it's a different environment. You know, and that's just the same with boxing and relationships. I don't want a fighter that looks at us and thinks, oh, well, we're going to get rid of this lot and go elsewhere soon. No, I want someone that says, I'm with the best promoter in the world. I'm with the best network. I believe in them. He's going to take me forward for the benefit of my career, and he's going to make me as much money as he can. And I will do all those things if you're with me. But this has made me feel like you're not with me. And I don't always think it's Junior. I believe, and to be honest with you, I haven't had a conversation with Junior about it. I believe Chris Eubank Jr., and it would be impossible not to, he's not loving life on Sky Sports. You know, you see his tweet straight after the fight. Me and AJ, this is a double act that's going to go on for years on Sky. You're right and all. You are right. And you will make a lot of money. But you need us to deliver that on Sky. And you can go elsewhere. And I'm sure they'll be successful. Chris Eubank Sr., you know, for all his mockers, he's a character. He's a personality. The package is very attractive for those two.
On what grounds did Chris Eubank Sr. believe that Chris Eubank Jr. versus Nick Blackwell for the British title, which I'm assuming he means as a headline, would be pay-per-view? On what grounds did he believe that?
Because his perception of the situation at the moment, of his son's development and his son's, say, commercial value, is wrong. And you know, it wasn't a case of put him on pay-per-view or else. It was he believed that this fight should be on pay-per-view. I mean, I get enough stick as it is. You imagine I announced that fight. I mean, I will turn Chris Eubank Jr. into a pay-per-view fighter. But over time, you know, it took me 2 years with Anthony Joshua to do a job on him. And people talked about, you know, oh, Joshua's not pay-per-view. Listen, mate, these numbers are off the scale for Anthony Joshua. And I'll do the same thing for Chris Eubank Jr. But it takes time. You know, it's not just about jumping on pay-per-view and, you know, as much as people might not believe that I'm saying that, it's not about that. It's about growing. And when you jump on pay-per-view, you don't want to do 100,000 buys. You want to do 400,000 buys. And I can do that with Chris Eubank Jr., but there has to be a belief that I'm the man for the job. And if there isn't, I'm not interested. And I don't know whether this will be resolved. I don't, you know, that they might not want it to be resolved. I'd love to work with Chris Eubank Jr. for his whole career. I'll make him filthy rich. But he's got to believe in me and let me do my job. And, you know, the tweet that was sent out ruffled a lot of feathers. People who are less forgiving than me. So I don't know whether it's solvable or even if they want to solve it.
So to sum up, is today, right now as we speak, is Chris Eubank currently a matchroom fighter or not?
It's a good question, actually. He's released from his contract. So could he come back and say, no, we'd rather fight the third fight with you? I don't know, actually. That's the honest answer. I haven't had advice from our lawyers on it, but it's gone beyond that. It's not, I'm not, sue me, sue him, sue it. It doesn't appeal to me. If he wants to leave, if he don't want to be a matchroom fighter, doesn't matter whether he's under contract or not. I want to work with you. But I believe he does want to be a matchroom fighter, and he does want to be a pay-per-view fighter on Sky. So we've either got to sit down in a room and iron it out, or we go a separate way, shake hands, and say best of luck from you.
When do you expect this to be resolved by? Or
well, I think it's got to be resolved fairly soon, because I would think, Mick's got to give a date soon for Blackwell against Hennessy. I think it's unfair to mess him around if he's not going to take the fight. You don't want to go on sale and plan it and give it to the broadcast if it's not going to happen. We had a call, we spoke to the lawyer on Friday. I expect more conversations this week. I don't know, but like I said, it's now no longer a case of come back for your last fight, because I'd rather give the opportunity to someone else that's with me, long term, believes in me, believes in Matchroom, believes in Sky, because I'm not going to give a fighter a big payday and a leg up for him to leave after that fight.
Okay, it's a very confusing situation. But
do you think? I don't know.
It is and it ain't.
I've tried to simplify it, and I've tried to be as honest as possible.
Because the reports from the other day just suggested that contract was.
Well, he has the right.
Yeah.
He has the right to walk away from the contract.
But have they got to put that in writing? How do they walk away from the contract?
The contract is worded again. Contracts are contracts. Is that if Matchroom lose a purse bid, Chris Eubank Unity motion will be released from their contract, and all the other terms of this agreement, they do not have to honour.
Is that verbally, or is that just?
That's written. All these things I tell you about in this interview are written in contracts.
Right, so have they written to you to say that they're not pursuing the rest of their contract?
No, they haven't. Right. No. But again, I'd have to take advice on, if they came back and said, well, we decided we don't want that fight, we want the third fight. Do we have to provide them with that? Because I'm not comfortable doing that unless we talk about a longer term deal. Because, Chris Eubank Senior didn't want any long-term commitment with anybody. So we put a 3-fight, and it was only 7 months or something like that. It's not exactly the biggest risk to your career. So, they probably don't want to put a long-term or a longer-term deal in place. And if they don't, then we'll all walk away and say best of luck to you. But it'll be a big mistake, I believe. I think it'll be a shame for all of us if we don't work it out, because this is the platform for him. We're the promoters for him. And he's a great fighter. And he's a great entertainer. The package is great. So, we'll see.
All right. Well, listen, Eddie Hearn, thanks for giving us, I'm going to say your view and your side of whatever's been going on over the last couple of weeks to these issues. If anyone's watching this and wants to counter or respond to what Eddie's saying, then get in touch. No, but it's not about a star. It's about getting what you're saying and Frank Warren's saying, or Mick Hennessy's saying, Peter Fury's saying. I'd rather.
I don't know what else. I could sit here to you, tell you the absolute truth about all the scenarios. If someone doesn't believe me or wants, you're welcome to say what you want. But I can't sit here having people say, oh, they're not telling the truth, they're lying. Because the business means too much to me. We don't work like that. We're a company built over years of integrity. Speak to anyone we deal with, they'll tell you the same thing.
All right, Eddie, listen, have a wonderful Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I'm sure we'll catch up with you in the new year.